It's kind of difficult to separate the God of War Valhalla DLC from just the hype surrounding it and really from the whole God of War experience that Sony Santa Monica has given us since the kind of sort of reboot that happened back in 2016. The reality is that this DLC didn't really need to exist for any reason in a free form. The fact that it was is amazing. The fact that it was kind of shadow dropped during the Game Awards. The fact that it came out just mere days after it shadow dropped, in combination of it being free, in combination of it being a phenomenal experience that enriches the story, the universe, the characters, and is done in a brand new format for God of War with a roguelike. All of those things in of themselves is insanely impressive. So it's hard to look at Sony Santa Monica and not feel just an immense set of pride and satisfaction as a fan and saying, wow, they continue to treat their fans well. So you want to naturally root for them, and you want to say that anything they do has to be decent because they're really trying. They're breaking the mold of lots of microtransactions and cosmetic items and all these kind of nonsense that a lot of other AAA games have unfortunately gone down. But they have found a way to not only give us quality products now twice, but to give us a free quality product. And that's what I'm going to be talking about today. And like I said, I'm going to try my best to separate those two, but it is very, very clear to me, and I'm sure you listening to this, there is a lot of natural bias and you want to root for this game. It's not perfect, but it's pretty damn good. And at free, it's even a better deal. Had this been a paid DLC, I suspect many people would have picked it up just because the promise of what it potentially could have been. But once you start playing the game, I think you'll quickly realize that the hype surrounding the fact that it's free, the hype surrounding the fact that we're going to get maybe some new story really starts to take a back seat to just the overall quality of this experience. And it does stand on its own merit, and that's the best compliment I can ever give for any video game. Despite all the trailers and hype reels and announcements, when all that fades away and it's just you, your controller, and your television, you're going to enjoy your experience with this game, and you're going to get a lot of value out of it if you spend the time to understand the systems, and you're going to get a lot of value out of it in terms of progressing the story. Kratos' story did not end, and it still continues with this, and you're going to get more of his background. And it's going to do a really good job of tying up some of those loose ends back from the original games that came out on PlayStation, I don't know, what, 10, 15 years ago now? I don't even know when the first God of War came out. It was a while. But you're going to get story beats from that are going to be explored. You're going to figure out a little bit more of Mimir and Sigrun's relationship. You're going to understand kind of the retribution and the internal struggle that Tyr went through and Kratos is trying to go through. And at the end of this experience, don't worry, there's no spoilers here. At the end of this experience, you're going to have a much better appreciation for all these characters. And I think there's a pivotal moment in this DLC that needs to be enjoyed and understood prior to the next game, assuming it's a direct sequel, because something in here happens of pretty massive significance, at least in my opinion. And I think it does very nicely set up what could be to come. So if that still isn't a sales pitch, let me at least give you a review proper and explain to you what this game is all about. And basically, it's Kratos as lost as normal. He's going through something. He's not feeling that he's really deserving of kind of the accolades and the title that he got. He's still struggling. And in a lot of ways, this is his kind of, internalization. Obviously he speaks with his fists, but it's his internalization of kind of what happened and why he is what he is and where does he ultimately see his story going. So you're going to basically pick up the game right after the end of Ragnarok. If you haven't played Ragnarok, do not play this until you have played Ragnarok because you will be thoroughly confused. But what the nice thing is it picks up after Ragnarok. And Kratos is now going into Valhalla as kind of he was summoned. He doesn't know why, but he received a mysterious letter of somebody saying, hey, we are watching you. We know you have kind of this internal issue. Come and let's kind of work through this together. And Valhalla is this kind of proving ground for Kratos to work through this problem that he has. And that's kind of where the story begins. And I'll leave it there, as again, no spoilers. What you're going to be doing moment to moment is kind of reliving these almost challenge rooms. Now, all the progress that you previously had in the game, unfortunately, that's gone. You're going to start off, you're going to get Samus Aran. You're going to have pretty much nothing to your name. You're going to start off with nothing, and you're going to have to work through challenge room after challenge room, fighting enemies, sometimes just regular cannon fodder type enemies, sometimes bosses. As you work through room after room, jumping through various portals, at the end of each room, you're going to be given a choice. You can usually pick one reward over another, or you can take some sort of punishment, but in exchange, you'll get something of incredible value, and so on and so forth. And you'll go through these rooms, and you'll begin these loops, working your way slowly up to a pivotal moment in Kratos' life. You'll watch a long cutscene, and Kratos will explain why something happened back at a certain point in his life that was a challenge to him or of great meaning to him. And there's multiple of these, and you're going to work through that by fighting things. And basically all of the choices you made, the skills that you have selected, the light runic attacks, the heavy runic attacks, whether you specialize more in drop near spear damage, or if you're going to be more of an axe player, any new passives that you got, skills, rage, etc. All of that's going to be basically put on the line as you fight through a larger-than-life boss. And if you win, you will progress the main story, this ultimate conflict that Kratos is having internally, but you'll resolve the little story that you're getting as well. You'll get some rewards that allow you to go to various vendors, for lack of a better term. They're these like kind of sacred stones, where you're going to basically cash in all of the things that you've earned to make subsequent runs easier. You'll be able to maximize your health permanently, or have more rage, or start with a better chance of particular drops, that sort of thing. All of the skills that you've earned, unfortunately, they're gone. You're going to have to work through all of the skills and the challenges, Samus Aran essentially, from the beginning, once again, and work through everything. And you're going to do this again and again and again. If at any point you fail and die, which is part of the experience because you're going to die, you'll be thrown back to the beginning. And if you have at that point collected any currency, you'll keep it with you. And eventually you will start to get enough material and economy to actually buy an upgrade that is meaningful to your playstyle, that does ultimately help you in subsequent runs. And that's really the theory behind any roguelike game. I don't think there's anything revolutionary here. What makes this so much fun is that there are times when you're going to find two really good perks, and you're going to have to make a choice as to what kind of character you want to be. And if you're like me and you platinumed the God of War Ragnarok game, none of these skills are going to look very wild or different. There is one unique fury that they added, which is really, really, really awesome. That was not in the base game. And I suspect a lot of people are probably going to be using that quite a bit because it is really amazing. I don't want to ruin that for you. The armor and all the other stuff that you unlock is purely cosmetic, though. So you can look however you want, but you're still going to have only those stats that you paid into. So regardless if you are wearing the best armor in the game or the worst armor in the game, it's irrelevant. It's purely cosmetic. And that's what kind of keeps the game challenging, is that you can't just kind of start basically completely maxed out. You're going to start every run essentially weak, naked, and afraid, and you're going to have to slowly work up your arsenal of attacks and glyphs and passive abilities and etc. to get into a particular play style. Since it's completely random what you're going to be facing, since it's completely random the choices you're going to make, while there is a tiered system between what is considered like a low reward versus a high reward, for example. But since that is completely random, no two runs will ever be the same. So you might have a run that works really, really well, where you're working through a lot of challenges and you're really starting to build up, and you're going to feel like that run's significantly easier than a follow-on run where the rewards might not be as good. But that's just the name of the game. It's meant to be played in loop the idea of going through and progressing through the same type of challenges again and again and again will make you play better. It's kind of that Dark Souls brute force style where you will eventually have to get better. You will have no choice. And if you're playing and you're exploring and you're picking up all the optional chests and some of the very basic puzzles that may be scattered in the rooms, if you're picking doors that kind of focus into a particular play style, some of the doors, they all have markings on them. So the doors it'll be clear to you what you're getting yourself into. Sometimes you have that choice. You can go fight an optional boss, or you can just get money, or you can take on some other challenge. You have these options. It'll ultimately culminate in a kind of showdown in the kind of upper area of the dungeon, which is what you're looking at now here. Every run will always end in this area. And what happens in this area is it'll be a timed event where you'll have to go around and fight rifts, so many rifts in a certain amount of time. The enemies will get progressively harder the longer you take. You're free to stay as long as you want. You can clear out every single rift and be very, very powerful. Once you leave this area and you've spent all your money and bought all of the skills that you think you can have and you've upgraded everything to your maximum level, you'll ascend to fight the final boss. And you'll do this again and again and again. You'll fight the same final boss numerous times. Each iteration of fighting against that boss will be more difficult. That boss will take on different characteristics, and the boss fights do get increasingly more difficult. But because you've been leveling up your character, because you've been buying into passives, your health bar is going to be starting to reach a maximum level. You're going to have a higher overall amount of fury, passive abilities, the glyphs that you've chosen for that run. You're going to make smarter decisions and kind of focus in on one particular weapon type. You're going to be ready for it. And it is a very satisfying moment when you can successfully kind of complete... when you can finally successfully complete this run, but as I said, you lose everything and you have to start all over from the beginning again. And you just do this again and again. And you, like I said, you get those rich story moments in between, which keep you invested. There's a lot of dialogue here between Kratos and Mimir, and some other characters make an appearance as well. And there's a lot of really good dialogue. Now, the one thing you will not have in this game, which is probably slightly different than you may have experienced from the other God of War installments, is you will not have a companion. You will be fighting completely on your own. So you're not going to have anybody to help you out. It's up to you to get the job done with all your skills. But it is absolutely achievable, and it is absolutely a rewarding, satisfying ending that really kind of caught me off guard, that I think sets up, like I said, future installments of the game in a more meaningful way. And I'm glad that this DLC was free, and I'm glad that this DLC was so rewarding as a player. Now, I'll close it out by saying this. If you struggled with God of War, you're probably going to have a hard time on the final loops of this, because the final boss does get kind of annoying. Multiple phases. There's a lot of attacks that are thrown at you to kind of memorize and learn the skills. It took me more tries than I care to admit to beat them. Keep in mind, it always culminates at the end of a run, and if you lose the run, you die. Now, you probably could be clever with some save scumming and figure out a way to turn off your saves or whatever to continue the adventure in a little more meaningful way. But ultimately, what you're going to probably end up doing, like me, is you're going to be frustrated and you're going to have to start all over again. And some of your gameplay and some of your builds are going to be better than other ones. That's just the luck of the draw. So you're going to have to expect that maybe every run doesn't have every cool ability the way you want it. And it's rare to get perfect synergy with the best weapons and the best abilities. But if you stick with it and work your way through the content, I think you'll be pleasantly surprised at the amount of upgrades and amount of cosmetics you get. As an added bonus, when you do beat this experience, there are some cosmetics and new abilities that will carry over into the base game. So if you want to fire up a new game plus, or go off and explore and try to get that platinum, I already did, with some of the cosmetics and things you unlock here, that is actually something that might be worthwhile checking out as well. That will wrap up my thoughts on this amazing piece of DLC. I cannot recommend it enough. If you have not checked it out, do yourself a favor and download it and try it. Tell your friends about it. This is the kind of content to me that I love making, talking about a good game studio in Sony Santa Monica, that really put their players first. This is an absolute love letter to the fans. This is an absolute phenomenal, kind of bow tie to some of the lingering questions I think we all had. And maybe not all of us if you're not super lore nuts, but definitely some stuff that it does wrap up the Ragnarok experience quite nicely. That's it for today's video. Thank you all so much for watching. Take care of yourselves, and until next time, I will see you guys on the other side.